Hello and welcome to Indian Standard Time. My guest today on the program is Sheikh Rashid Ghannouchi, President of the Ennahda Party or the Renaissance Party of Tunisia, one of the most important political formations, I would say, not just in Tunisia but in the entire North African and West Asian region. The Ennahda Party is part of the ruling coalition right now in Tunisia, and Tunisia is really the most shining example of a country that has seen the Arab Spring through from every stage. The initial stage of people taking to the streets, mobilizing themselves, opposing a dictatorial regime, to the stage of rewriting a constitution, holding multi-party elections, and of course now going through a peaceful political, societal transformation. Sheikh Ghannouchi, for the benefit of Indian television viewers, please explain to us, what is it about Tunisia and its politics and its society that has allowed the country to complete the Arab Spring, to complete the revolution and bring it to the stage where you have democracy, stability, and all the benefits in terms of free speech, civil liberties, that your neighboring countries, Egypt, Libya, don't have? What is it about Tunisia that has allowed you to be successful?
Hello, good evening. Assalamu alaikum. I'm coming from Tunisia. Tunisia, as you know, a small country in North Africa. It's part of Arab world and Muslim world. Tunis has been ruled by a dictator. The last dictator is Ben Ali regime. He used the one-party system with facade of democracy. Usually Ben Ali elected by 99% or 95%. So, and he arrested thousands of people, tortured, and
you spent time in jail as well.
Yes,
and then you went to do
I
exile.
have been sentenced 3 times by capital, by life imprisonment. Thousands of people have been arrested, have been tortured, and free speech is forbidden. So once all ways of reform the system were closed, so Tunisian people go to the street and achieved to topple this dictator. And
from January 2011 onwards.
2011, and establish real democracy based on new constitution, where all freedom have been accepted, free speech and conscience and real elections. We insist that new Tunisia has to be based on real democracy, and we cooperate as Islamic party. We strongly believe that democracy and Islam are compatible, and Islam and modernity also are compatible. We insist that we have to cooperate with the secular parties, because the main trends in Arab world is Islamic trend and secular trend, and the two trends have been fought for a long time. So we opt for cooperation between the two trends to avoid any sort of polarization, believing that polarization is not in favor, in benefit of transition democracy.
Was polarization a mistake that the Brotherhood in Egypt made, do you think?
I think one reason of the collapse of another experience of Arab Spring, the polarization between Islamist and no-Islamist, or between Islamist and the army. So in Tunisia, we try to avoid any sort of polarization. We are lucky in Tunisia that our army is not politician army. Fight for Tunisia, for protect Tunisia from any threat, outside threat, and don't intervene in politics. So, and we succeed to establish coalition government between Islamist and no-Islamist, between moderate Islamists and moderate secularists, avoiding by that any sort of conflict, because the period of transition cannot support the strong polarization between trends. We avoid to be affected by what happened in Egypt, in Libya, and we succeed to establish an example proving that democracy is possible in Arab world. Why not when we establish a democracy in Tunisia?
If the Egyptian revolution was suffered from the polarization, as you say, between the Islamists and the secularists, and also between the army and civil society, the struggle for democracy in Libya also has run aground. You have, of course, the country is not even united administratively. There's lack of security. Do you think this is the product of external intervention? Is that the reason, or that the domestic political forces haven't managed to work out an agenda?
The local forces has not succeeded to cooperate with themselves and to establish compromises between themselves. So they let the opportunity to foreign forces to intervene in Libya, because Libya is full of wealth, the petrol. We are lucky in Tunisia because we haven't oil,
right?
Only olive oil.
Exactly. You know, one of the remarkable things about your own career is the fact that you consciously chose, despite being the leader of the largest party, at the end of the first elections, the Constituent Assembly elections, you chose not to put yourself forward as leader. You chose not to form a government only of the Ennahda party.
Or with Islamist party.
Or with Islamist forces alone, exactly. So how durable do you think this, and again you're in alliance with the Nida Tunis party, which has elements of the old people associated with the earlier regime. There was a lot of pressure that in Tunisia's new constitution and new politics, the old people, the old forces should be completely excluded. But you felt that that was not a wise thing. What was the reason for that?
Not the wise thing.
Why?
We try to avoid any sort of exclusion. We opt for inclusive democracy. We see very clear that in other experience in Libya, in Iraq, in Syria, they try to exclude the people of former regime, so they feed the conflicts or the polarization between the past and the after revolution. So we avoid this polarization and opt for democracy of inclusive democracy, not exclusive democracy. So now we are working with Nida Tunis, this party formed by some leftists, some people coming from former regime, but we are working within the constitution. the constitution signed by 94% of Tunisian. So the people of former regime now are working with us, but within the constitution of the revolution, not within the old system. The old system is collapsed, finished. So we working within the new era, the new.
Right. The assassination of two leftist leaders in 2013, Chokri Bedaid and then Mr. Mohammed Brahimi, was a setback for the struggle for democracy. Many people initially blamed your government that you were not vigilant enough, and then of course you gave up some ministries and you went in for a process of conciliation or consensus building. Have those cases been solved now, or who do you think was responsible
in
for
the hands, this matter? It's in the hands of judiciary, and the extremist group, so-called Ansar al-Sharia, blamed for committed many crimes against some leaders like Brahmi and like Bel'id, and tens of our forces, police and army. So Tunisian people are victim as other societies with some terrorist group. And you know that Ennahda party, which led two governments after the revolution, classified this terrorist branch, as a terrorist organization, classified them and announced the war, declared war against this group. So we are the main victim of terrorism, right, because they pretend that are Muslim, and they consider us non-Muslim.
Right.
So we are in state of war against this terrorist group.
We'll take a short break on that. When we return, we will come back to discussing Tunisia's own war against terrorism and, of course, the phenomenon of the Islamic State, so-called Islamic State, in the wider Arab world. Keep watching. Welcome back to Indian Standard Time. My guest this evening is Sheikh Rashid Ghannouchi, leader of the Ennahda party of Tunisia and one of the most prominent political personalities of the Arab world today. Sheikh Ghannouchi, we were talking before the break about the problem of terror, and of course the whole world was witness to the recent attack on the National Museum, tragic attack, claimed by the Islamic State. How much of a threat is the Islamic State to Tunisia as well? I mean, we know that the Islamic State is active in Iraq, Syria, all over the region, but specifically within Tunisia, is this a new phenomenon that has now surfaced?
I would like to insist that the terrorism in Tunisia is a marginal phenomena. What happened in Bardo, the attack against...
At the museum, yeah.
Our museum, it's an attack against our civilization, because these people are savage people. They cannot respect our heritage. So it can happen in any way, but Tunisia is calm. The calm is reign in the country. The state, the government control every single of every part of Tunisia, but we consider that this terrorist group has no real link with Islam, because Islam is merciful, is rahmah, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Islam is justice, Islam is respecting the humankind, not killing people, innocent people, and destroy the civilization. So about Islam, Tunisia is a Muslim country, and our constitution is a constitution for a Muslim country. The first article in our constitution define our identity, or the identity of the state is Muslim Arab state. So,
and a republic. Yeah.
So we are working within a Muslim state without, we don't need any sort of totality of imposing anything for the Tunisian people, because Tunisian people is Muslim people, and the only institution who legislate the laws is the parliament.
Right.
So our deen, our religion is interpreted by the representative of people.
Now, you quoted some controversy during the stage when the constitution was being written, when you rejected the demand by some groups that Sharia should be the sole basis of law. What is your argument for people who insist that Sharia has to be the basis for law in any democracy, and that people or parliament has no role to play in this?
All Tunisians accept in the constitution, all representatives of people accepted that Tunisia is Muslim, Arabo-Muslim country, Arabo-Muslim state. About Sharia, the meaning of Sharia is not common, is not agreed by all sides. Some people gives a meaning against others.
Right.
So the constitution has not contained only what is common, what is agreed by all sides. Once the Tunisian people agree about Islam, so it's enough. So we avoid to name it, to put Sharia in the constitution, because some parties are not agree.
Right. Are you worried about the fact that Salafi groups or Takfiri groups are increasing their influence within Tunisia, within Tunisian politics? Is that a danger, you think, that those who advocate Salafi point of view may be gaining ground in Tunisia as they are in many other parts of the Islamic world?
Salafiyya as interpretation, kind of interpretation of Islam is accepted. So Islam can be interpreted in many ways.
Okay.
Salafi, Sufi, Hanafi, Shafi'i, our religion is open. Any Muslim is responsible vis-a-vis his God. But our problem is not with the Salafiyya as way of thinking Islam. But our problem is with violence. When you legitimize using violence against anyone because he interprets Islam
in a different way,
different way, or didn't accept Islam, because as you know, no compulsion in Islam, as Allah said in the first surah, the Baqarah, no compulsion in Islam, because Islam is matter of faith. You choose your faith. The faith is matter of heart,
right,
and mind. Not the state has no right to impose anything for his people, because the role of state is the secure the country, to give service to the people, not to impose any faith. So our constitution recognizes the freedom of faith. So this there is lack of knowledge of Islam. These tiny groups has no enough knowledge about Islam. There is ignorance. So they believe that their way of thinking Islam is only way to paradise.
And everybody else is not a true Muslim.
So who different from them, they legitimize killing him or threaten him is not legitimate.
What explains the military strength or the growing strength of the so-called Islamic State? I mean, we've seen them emerge more or less out of nowhere to becoming a formidable threat in Iraq, in Syria, How do you understand, or how do you explain this rise of the IS?
As I said, it's lack of knowledge of Islam.
Right.
I didn't find any leader from this ISIS or Al-Qaeda who have educated in Azhar, for example, or in New Band, or Zaytuna or Qarawin, because who is educated in real education cannot legitimize killing people because they don't understand Islam as he wants. So there is it's fruit of dictator. The Middle East ruled for a long time with dictators. So the reaction, any government worth its opposition. If the government is Democrat government, the opposition will be the Democrat. I don't legitimize the violence. I refuse the violence, but to understand why the Middle East is full of terrorism, because it's full of dictators. So the only way to contradict, to stop using violence, to stop terrorism, is to spread democracy, spread the justice.
How do you assess the intervention that the use of military means in the fight against the Islamic State? Do you think that the involvement of the United States, its allies, is
when American intervened in Iraq against Saddam Hussein as dictator, they dismantled Iraq state, they dismantled the Iraqi army, and they failed to instruct, to build, to establish a real democracy in Iraq. So they push Iraq to the chaos, and they open the door to Qaeda and to ISIS. During Saddam Hussein, no Qaeda, no ISIS in Iraq. So it's fruit of this intervention. So intervention is not solution.
Right.
Dictatorship is not solution for stopping using violence, but the democracy, the justice, the development, economic development, the real interpretation of Islam.
Sheikh Sahab, as we come to the end of the interview, what would your advice be to a country like India, which, like Tunisia, is an open society? The nature of Islam is open Islam, very much like what you speak about. What would your advice be as India increases its engagement with the Arab world and also has to deal with the problem of the Islamic State?
As Tunisia, as young democracy, very young democracy, we see India as the biggest democracy in the world. We learn many things from, many lessons from this biggest democracy in the world, whether in the politics or in economy, in development, and how India succeed to manage with its diversity, vast diversity. So it's a very important lesson to include, how we can include all fractions, all religions or races within democratic state.
Sheikh Ghannouchi, thank you very much for talking to us at Rajya Sabha Television.
Thank you.
Viewers, keep watching RSTV. We'll be back again next week with another guest on Indian Standard Time. Thank you.